Welcome to the Profit with the Planets 2023 Astrology of Financial Markets. I'm just going to start with a bit of a summary of where I think we're going next year. I'm trying to make this for people that know astrology, people that are open to astrology that can't really understand the charts. I've got to do my best to try and make it for everyone. I know there's a lot of people coming in, and astrology does provide us with the answers that we may be seeking of where we're going. I'm recording this in November 2022. Things are starting to feel a little icky. It's been a very complicated year. A lot of the stuff that was going to happen in 2022 absolutely has played out. We're going into quite, I think, a similar yet different energy for 2023. Now, I'm doing the astrology of 2023. It's slightly financial predictions, but it's talking about the astrology and where we think the astrology probably will take us. I want to come out and say straight up, I think 2023 is not going to be a good year for the financial markets. We did have a warrant for caution. Absolutely, this year it has made things very messy. Particularly the tech markets have lost a lot of value. Markets generally. Where that has come, Jupiter and Pisces, there was too much optimism. Things got unsustainable. We also had a lot of fake things that aren't really real. Jupiter and Pisces and Jupiter-Neptune, and the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, they created a bit of a false setup as such. Now, some of it was real, but I say Jupiter Neptune conjunction is like going out and having a massive night on whatever you want to take, and there's always a hangover. In history, Jupiter and Neptune showed us there's a hangover, and that Jupiter and Pisces was this sort of unbridled optimism. Yes, in the crypto markets, we absolutely saw things, a lot of things that weren't real. I don't need to name them. They've all come into sort of what it was. We were expecting that. I will say Saturn is coming into Pisces in 2023. I called Jupiter the party set, and it's just my little terminology for it. So we need to start thinking things might go a little opposite. Whilst we have this crazy optimism, are we going to have quite a lot of pessimism? Now, that's probable. Now, where Jupiter and Pisces brought in a bit of nonsense, particularly in the crypto markets, but also in the stock markets. And so we are opposite of that. So there may be a little bit of retribution for those that don't quite follow the script as they should. So we may see when they come in and regulate some stuff, they really could put a stop to all this stuff going on social media. Saturn in Pisces is not a really great energy because they are two quite different forces. Jupiter loved Pisces. I don't think Saturn's going to have such a good time. Now, we have seen the water shortages I was expecting. We may see some more water themes. Saturn restricts. Now, you can certainly use that as investment. If you think about things that are Pisces, the water, under the water, your medications, your pharma, is there going to be a restriction of that sort of stuff? Maybe we'll have supply chain issues with pharmaceuticals. I'm certainly thinking, and we are actually seeing it already. Usually we get little clues with astrology, we get little hints before. But we are going to see, it's not going to be a very nice energy. So I just want to put out there, do not expect what we saw last year. If you are looking for the markets to do that, I'm not so sure that's going to happen. Now, we have a massive eclipse. I'm going to go into this in a bit more detail. I want to summarize this for people that don't really understand the charts and stuff. We have a huge eclipse coming in April 2023 at 29 degrees of Aries. Aries is a pretty tough energy. 29 degrees is what we call a critical degree. Pluto will square that eclipse. Pluto is a pretty intense planet, and Pluto is moving to Aquarius at the same time. Now, when Pluto moved to Capricorn in 2008, what happened in 2008? The markets fell apart. We don't have a lot of history to look at, but it is certainly possible, maybe even probable, the markets could go down. When a planet moves to the end of a sign, it hits 29 degrees, again, a critical degree. Saturn's moving to Pisces. It's going to hit 29 before it gets to that zero. All this now, even Jupiter's going to move to Taurus. I'm going to show you some stats, Jupiter in Taurus. You're probably thinking, Taurus, money, great. Jupiter's going to make it great. The stats aren't actually that fantastic when it moves in. I'm going to show you, I have back tested a few years as well. So I'm going to warn, maybe be careful of, like we saw the Jupiter in Aries, oh, it's going to be amazing. No one tested it to see that actually wasn't very good in history. I'm going to say that again. The Aries energy was snap out of it. From that Pisces energy, get real. The Taurus energy is different. However, the last Jupiter Taurus cycle, it was not a party to get started. It gets there eventually, but this is the astrology of 2023. It's going to move about halfway through the year. There is a lot going on in May, and I'm pretty much of the thought that the markets, we may go up a little bit in the beginning, but I think anywhere from that April to May, look, we may make some sort of last top. I don't know if it's an ultimate top. I think we could even go down all the way. Now, things will always move. I don't know if Saturn in Pisces will help the biotech market. Jupiter in Pisces certainly did not. I don't know. Look for beaten up industries on an investment. No financial advice provided, but be careful going in. Everything's pretty flat anyway. And so look, the thing with the markets I want to make clear, when we hit the levels are important and they do create zones. So it's how does the astrology match? I just don't like it. I have made other videos where I think there could possibly be some sort of natural thing in America. Certainly looking at the property market to make a secondary top. We were expecting one in 2022. It's called the nodes moving into late stages. That will come again slightly later in the year. I don't really like the second eclipse that's coming across the US. We do see a lot of activity for countries when an eclipse passes over. So I just want to summarize it. Be really careful next year. Crypto, I'm here to say I think there's actually a pretty okay chart. And us actually, at the moment, what's happening changes all the time, but crypto is starting to, before it was with the market, I see a bit of a decoupling early next year. I don't know if I'm right, just looking at the astrology. I did wait for this forecast to see what Elon Musk was doing. Taking Twitter, that's a bit of a no-brainer, isn't it? Make $44 billion or $1 million, whatever it was. How else are you going to pay for that? You're probably going to slice the dollar out of every transaction. He needs to make it back pretty quickly. And now we're seeing all this pay stuff. It seems a bit of a no-brainer. I've seen Michael Saylor and one of the Winklevoss tweets. The clues are there, and we wanted with astrology to see the clues. And I waited to do this forecast quite late, so I really wanted to see if that takeover was going to happen, because I actually don't know how you could even predict crypto without knowing what that was about. And so, yes, it's come. I'm going to say I actually didn't think it was going to, but yes, it's come. Okay. So now that makes sense. I think where this positive energy I've been seeing for a little while, and put a little hint there, probably is a good period coming. So I think, now I'm not saying it's going to go to a new high. I don't know. Jupiter and Taurus, we don't have the stats. We literally have to make it up. So just want to put that out there. So some of the stuff I'm going to talk about, I'm very hesitant to make astrological predictions without back testing data. That is not the way to do it, because we're simply guessing. Anyone can guess. We don't have much of a choice with Jupiter and Taurus. So I can show you the market stats. I can't really show you anything of the crypto, but I will show you some phases where I think that comes in a little bit. So hopefully I'm going to make this as easy as possible. Everyone's very worried. My consulting business is extremely busy with everyone being worried. So if you feel worried, you are not alone. It's very normal. Pluto in Aquarius, that's going to be really intense. And I just want to put out there that Aquarius, the ruler of Aquarius is Uranus, and Uranus is a trauma signature in astrology. Now, Pluto and Uranus probably, you could argue which one's more intense. We may quite start seeing, now, Pluto's going to very slowly get into early Aquarius next year. It's going to go back to Capricorn. It's going to hit those critical degrees of 29, back and forth. I don't know, and it may not be that we see Pluto in Aquarius immediately. We may, because yes, certainly the markets crashed in 2008 with Pluto changing signs, but there was other astrology too. I want to make that really clear. So we can't exactly model the Pluto and Aquarius stuff, because I do think it's going to cause some trauma. I'm not going to lie. I don't know if we're going to see that side of things the minute that Pluto gets in there. We can't know. Pluto rules viruses, and I will just quickly shout out to Jessica Adams, who talks about that a lot. Go to her site for that. We may see that again. We may see something traumatic straight away, but I want to put out a bit of a warning with this Pluto in Aquarius, okay? Because if Pluto in Aquarius can bring in a bit of trauma, and Pluto money, I want to just put out a thing to be really careful of this sort of plutocrats. And what a plutocrat, it's a banking term that was actually made up by bankers. Go figure that, using astrology. The people that have a lot of money at the top, whether that be the bankers, Pluto rules narcissists, millionaires, billionaires. It's also personal power. I want to put that out there. If you are Aquarian, I am not saying you're going to get traumatized. If you are in early stages, degrees of in Aquarius, Pluto will go on your sun, and look, that will be a bit of a workout. Just think personal power there. Don't think that every Aquarian is certainly going to get traumatized, but this is going to go for a really long time. Be really careful of plutocrats and money, and Pluto rules the group. and the dynamic. So just be a little careful, have a little bit of discernment. Now, hopefully there'll be a bit of retribution if that happens, but we don't want to see any sort of group trauma on a financial level. Pluto does bring financial trauma. That's the bit I love of my business the best, working with people. And I certainly had it myself coming in the market. So just be careful of that stuff. One good thing, we should see philanthropy on a really big scale, social crowdfunding. If there's something that you want to do that will better society, now's the time to do it. Working on something myself, I'm actually going to push for the market, maybe a little bit and start getting some philanthropy and stuff a little bit. Still be doing it, but maybe a little bit differently. So hopefully if you've got a business, maybe think how you can bring that in. We certainly have not in 2022 seen people talking about charity, philanthropy. It's going to come in Aquarius. Aquarius likes fairness and justice. So you can certainly position your business that way in all sorts of ways, whether it be media, stuff like that. It's actually quite exciting. I'm going to sort of stop talking now and get into some of the astrology. Just to talk about some of the main transits coming through. Pluto moving to Aquarius. Saturn moving to Pisces, the energy is going to change. We probably may see a few more of anyone in the markets that hasn't been doing so good. You know, Saturn's the police. There could be people may be getting into some problems. That Pisces energy, I'm not saying every Pisces, but Pisces can be a little bit of the people that don't tell the truth. There could be a bit of stuff coming. So look out for that and be very careful getting into things that are not regulated, because literally one day you could wake up and it's like, oh, I didn't expect that to happen. A lot of news could start flowing, so be careful of the asset stops. Just be careful. Jupiter in Taurus, I'm going to show you that. I might even, we'll want to get into May, because that is not what going to be to start with. We don't know if it's going to happen the same way, but going on last year, it wasn't fantastic to get started. Okay. Uranus is going to get into late stage Taurus. Now, Uranus and Taurus is crypto. Did we see crypto the minute Uranus went into Taurus? No, it took a little while to get there. I call it the elevator going up to the mall. Everyone gets on the elevator, and slowly what's happened is that actually when Uranus hit 15 degrees in May 2022, the crypto markets fell apart. A lot of people were saying Jupiter moving into Aries. Uranus got to 15 degrees of Taurus. It could be coincidence, I don't know, and the crypto markets fell. Taking the escalator to the mall, everyone got on 15 degrees. Back down we came. So we've got to be really careful these late degrees. Once you run us out of Taurus, are we going to have crypto in the way we have it now? No. Now, I'm certainly not saying blockchain. I'm not here to make a video about that. The blockchain, information storing, etc., great. Blockchain, information storing, etc., great. I just don't know about this smaller end of crypto. Now, we're not getting there right now, but we are certainly going to push into the later degrees at the end of the year. The good news is we're going to actually push back as it goes backwards into the earlier degrees. So that actually could be quite positive for crypto. I'm going to show you that a little bit later. I don't know, but it's starting to fit in with some of my crypto puzzle that I'm making. So that's actually positive. Got to be careful of these signs going to 29 degrees. When we had the tsunami, Uranus was at 29 degrees of Pisces. Pisces rules underwater, and the Fukushima, sorry, not the tsunami, Fukushima back in 2013, I think it was. Late degrees are very important. I'm going to talk about this eclipse in April 2023, 19th of April. As far as I'm concerned, I think this is the thing. This is really concerning for me. So like I said, 29 degrees, it's actually 29.5 degrees, which makes it 0 degrees of Taurus. Just going to put it out there, Jupiter moving into Taurus, it could actually set off this eclipse. They say in astrology, any outer planets that go to the degrees of the eclipses can sometimes bring them back. This doesn't look fantastic. Critical degree Aries, intense energy. Pluto is squaring the eclipse, okay? So we've got to be a little bit worried about this. This doesn't look good. Pluto is changing signs to Aquarius, and it will have hit that 29 degrees, right? So I was meaning to go before. So here's this critical degrees, Aries and 0 Taurus money. Taurus rules money, so it is technically in that sign as well. I've seen it written as both. This looks a bit intense. We saw what happened with the eclipse. The Scorpio one was okay that we had, but the one that happened in May wasn't great. Now, there's something else I have worked out. If you remember last year, I want to show you something. When I say last year, I mean 2022, which is this year. I suggested we would probably crash into 2022 because we have what's called a crash signature. Uranus down here, I'm just moving it, okay, which is just on the right. That's Uranus there, and that's the eclipse there. Uranus and the eclipse were between Saturn and Pluto. Uranus between Saturn and Pluto means where the planets are in the sky. That's how I predicted the crash just on that alone, because it's one of the biggest crash signatures in history. 2008, 1929, 1979, 2022. I've got some bad news to come for 2023. Our eclipse is going to be with Pluto. So that means the eclipse is in this Saturn, Pluto, and Uranus is back here. So it's looking like, look, I don't know, because the planets haven't moved that far from last year, I guess, with the retrogrades, but our crash signature is back. So when we take this eclipse squaring Pluto at 29 degrees critical degree, I am worried for next year. And even this alone, remember, our markets have crashed with Pluto changing signs before. Are we going to have a crash? I don't know if it's a crash. Maybe it forms a top. Maybe something happens. This looks messy to me. Here is our Saturn already moved into Pisces, okay? So we've changed that energy already. So I would even say from March, probably time to get a little bit prepared. As I said, I don't know what's going to happen. We can't. It's very hard to forecast Pluto moving into Aquarius, okay? But it looks concerning. I'm just going to summarize it here for those that can't read the astrology. So this is this eclipse at 29 degrees. There's this crash aspect. Then what's going to happen in May, and I'll show you in a moment, Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn form what is called a T-square. It's a big triangle of energy, and they're all just talking to each other, screaming and shouting at each other. And that's going to happen in May, and there's an extraordinary amount of stuff coming in May that I'll probably touch on a little bit. Then we've got another eclipse. I'm going to push into 2023 a little bit more. That is coming at 19 degrees of Aries. So again, that's sort of Aries energy. It is going to fall over the Saturn of the USA. And it's actually coming between that Saturn-Pluto that I showed before on the USA chart. I have made some videos online where even the eclipse in April could be problematic. This eclipse passes over the USA. And I do worry there could be, again, I'm not saying it's going to happen, some kind of natural disaster. And then we have another set of those midpoints I just showed you, and I'll show you that in a minute, in November 2023. So what I want to point out here, January, February, maybe March might be okay. And then April, May, October, November. I just don't really like the look of it. It's just going back to what I did. This is May 2023 Pluto, and because it's red, it means it's going back forwards, what's called retrograde. And that actually is a pretty intense part of the astrology when planets do that. Now, here's Jupiter in Taurus, right? Everyone's like, oh, Jupiter in Taurus would be fantastic. And there's Mars at 0 degrees as well. Mars and Pluto are shouting at each other. Pluto is shouting at Jupiter. That's called a square. Now, also Pluto-Jupiter square in itself, we have to be very careful for financial markets. It hasn't produced like crashes, this little thing, but it certainly has brought a bit of a drawback when this has come along. And Jupiter is screaming at Mars here. It's called a T-square. I don't know if you can see the big red triangle between the three. It's some pretty tough energy. And again, this Pluto-Jupiter can be a negative financial situation anyway. We've got Saturn coming to square the sun, and there's that Pluto opposite Mars. Now, Mars opposite Pluto can be a little worry. I'm not saying there's going to be war. I don't know. But there is a lot of caution here for May right after that eclipse, okay? So this mid-year, I think we need to have some extreme amount of caution because this could be a little intense. Just a reminder again, that is still kind of this Saturn, Pluto, Uranus kicking around. So I think the whole April, May, I don't know. I think I just would be very careful early next year. Now, as I mentioned in May, Jupiter moves into Taurus. And what I want to do is I want to show you what happened last year, Jupiter and Taurus. Hopefully we won't see a lot of this stuff. We do have to be a bit careful making financial predictions, though, if we haven't gone back and tested history, because history is our greatest teacher. So I want to show you what has happened in Jupiter in Taurus in the past on the markets. Now, this was 2011 to 2012. It actually fell, and that would actually be our last degree, 29 degrees of that Aries, okay? That'll probably be your April. This is a weekly chart, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's actually probably March. Look, it doesn't mean we're going to repeat it exactly, but, you know, that is that 29th degree. We saw when Jupiter left Pisces into Aries, it wasn't pretty, so I'm just going to point out it may not be pretty again. But this is about 1, 2, 3, again, 6 weeks in. Jupiter would probably be around early degrees of Taurus. I think I actually tested this. It was about 7 or 8 degrees. Look at this. This is no bull, okay? Again, is it going to happen again? There was probably a lot of other astrology going on, but our history is showing it's not fantastic. Now, yes, it's a bullish cycle, but look, it took the whole time to get there. And when it finished, it ended up almost exactly back where it started. Will we replicate this exactly? I don't know, but we need to be really careful because that is probably going to be our first kind of in the middle, I guess, of all next year. So let's just be careful. Not crypto, I don't know, because this is two different things. I'll show you some astrology, but this is the astrology of the markets. I don't know. Again, it would depend what levels we get to. Certainly going back before, the market went up, 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 up. It was a little bit different. So we have had a different set of circumstances. There was certainly a little bit of a big dipsy doodle. So I got there in the end, but the journey to get there, I would almost rather stay out of this. And then it got right back to where it was. And look at that last degree again, your 29th degree. No, that's so, you know, I think it would be going into 2024 when Uranus gets to 29 degrees of Taurus. We need to be careful in those crypto markets, just putting it out there. Let's quickly talk about this COVID low that happened in early 2020. Yes, we absolutely had 3 of these big planets, which were Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter, all came together in what we'd call a conjunction. And certainly had a lot to do with COVID, but I actually was looking at some other astrology using those midpoints, okay? And I just want to show you some stats of something I found that we're repeating again. There's a lot of repeating astrology for 2023. On this screenshot I've taken, what we had was, again, using this midpoint method where we had Saturn, Pluto, a massive financial, so big in financial astrology is the combination of Saturn and Pluto on financial markets. So we had Saturn and Pluto were in between Jupiter and Uranus. Jupiter and Uranus actually rule tech stocks, they rule crypto. It's certainly a point I used in the video last year to look at Bitcoin tops and bottoms, and we're going to do that again in this. But have a look at this little setup. So I want to show you something that is coming in 2023. So this was our COVID low. This is almost, we're flipping it around a little bit, but this is a sort of very similar setup here. In November 2023, Jupiter and Uranus between Saturn and Pluto. So I'm actually going to pull this caution all the way down into November, going into the end of the year. We do have this repeating astrology, and we need to be a little bit careful. Now, this is in November. What we've got in October, I'm just going to move it, is that we have this eclipse coming, 21 Libra. Now, this comes over the USA. We really may see a little bit of a mess. Here it is here. But this eclipse 21 Libra, now that has brought some other issues in the past. There is a blog, quite a few blogs on my website, because I'm a little concerned about this one. It has brought, the Balinese tsunami actually came with the same series. So it has brought a disaster, even if it's not US. Now, interestingly, this is a property cycle. It's called the nodes in late stage Aries Taurus. I will provide a link to a blog on my website. This is where our property starts, if not even earlier. A lot of people ask me, no financial advice provided, please consult a licensed professional, but we are expecting the property market to really start coming down from here. But this looks a little bit concerning. Pluto is going to create a very wide square to the eclipse, so we don't need to be so worried. 6 degrees and eclipses, okay, Mars square Pluto. There's that Mars Pluto again. So this eclipse, I'm just a little worried about, and this is why I kind of want to pull this caution all the way down late in the year. Now, the best case scenario is that nothing happens. That would be fantastic. We have another planet moving, Mars into Scorpio. Now, this gets interesting because Mars will go to 2 degrees within days. Mars sets off eclipses. So being that the Scorpio eclipse, it wasn't great. It was good on the day, but the markets came down beforehand. We're probably going to see some Scorpio money. Scorpio is not the great stuff we do to get money. That Scorpio eclipse can trigger here as well. We do have a bit of a double whammy here. Okay, so I'm going to put out now with things to do with communication a lot. Here's Mercury conjunct that eclipse. It could completely be a completely different theme and nothing happens globally, which would be fantastic. We'll see a lot of things that are very Mercury based. And here's this South Node. It'll be about letting go of the past in some way. We also do have a lot of people with big planets in Libra, okay, which will probably be then affected by this as well. Certainly people are my age, born like 70s and stuff like that, start to have planets eclipsed. That's just a little bit worrying that we come across into this midpoints that repeated the COVID low. So again, it's just caution all year on the markets, maybe with some bounces in between. I pulled out the USA chart. Okay, here is your eclipse and here is the Saturn of the eclipse. Eclipses to Saturn are not pleasant. And what's going on? The exact Pluto return. Now that's going to happen other times as well. Saturn on the moon rules the public. Here's the Saturn, here's the moon. So that could be something to do with the public in some way. I just wanted to point out that is there. Now, if we look at Saturn, Pluto again, just using this midpoint formula, if I move it, that's your Saturn, that's your Pluto. The eclipse falls in between Saturn, Pluto midpoint. It's not a good midpoint. It can bring bankruptcies, financial destruction. I'm not saying these are going to happen. I'm just pointing out the eclipse is falling in that place. It even falls between Pluto, Sun, personal power. Look, I don't know, but there's a little bit to be worried about here. So I'm just putting it out there. I'm just presenting the astrology. Early eclipse back in April, I'm just going to quickly mention this too. There's that Saturn Pluto in the US, and I just want to point out, I don't know if you can see Saturn here. It is getting pretty close to that Saturn Pluto midpoint. So look, I don't know, but just probably have a bit of a look what's going on. I do again think the one in October may have a little bit more to worry about. A couple of transits, we have Jupiter square Pluto. Now that's financial. Jupiter square Mercury, Jupiter semi-square Uranus. It's just a couple little transits. And that eclipse is going to square Pluto exactly, okay? So both eclipses just need to have a little bit of caution flagged for the US. But I mean, we're going to see it everywhere anyway. It can be like money and plutocrats as well. This is the master transit of 2023 for the US anyway. I just want to point out this stuff that is there because it can't really be denied. Whatever needs to happen needs to happen. There's a natural law and, sometimes a bit of a death and rebirth, which is the Pluto conjunction anyway, is not such a bad thing. But I don't think it's anything that people in the US don't know. I just think watch these eclipses quite a lot over the next year. Hey, the US dollar 2022, we did have this eclipse in October at 2 Scorpio, which certainly came down. So expecting a bit of a pullback at the end of 2022. We have certainly got that. I think at the end of 2023, the USA and the US dollar charts I use do share the same setup. So this eclipse coming over Saturn would probably warrant a little bit of attention. Now, when Mars moves again to 2 degrees of Scorpio here just after the end of October 2023, we probably could see a pullback coming to the dollar. Currencies have come out of that Jupiter-Neptune inflationary, and the interest rates are probably going to rise all the way into a deflationary cycle. Those really big cycles are really important. So it's probably likely the dollar will have a bit of strength, but maybe a period to a bit of caution, particularly if you're watching this for crypto. I'll show you one thing coming. In March, there's a couple of things going on. Now, interestingly, we do have Mars conjunct Mars. Sometimes Mars creates tops, but it can create bottoms. I just want to point out that conjunction is quite important in financial astrology. But here's Jupiter. So we say when planets are opposite, they're screaming, shouting, having a bit of a shout at Saturn here. That may not be the most fantastic transit. Then we also have Jupiter square the Sun and then Jupiter opposite Saturn. So that could just set up a little bit of a ton of bearish. Look, this is in March. And then what's going to happen? Not far away, Jupiter square Pluto. Well, I'm absolutely not a fan of that. And this is May, okay? Now, I'm going to actually get into crypto in a minute. that actually fits pretty nicely with some of my crypto stuff. I don't mind April, May. I'm going to come there in a minute. So maybe just have a bit of a look out there. But certainly I think we will see some strength. We have some transits here too, like Saturn opposite Pluto. So I'm not saying it's all terrible, but that May we might want to exercise a bit of caution. And also in May, we have Saturn between Pluto, Saturn. So, often when we get a couple of double transits, so that'd be the period I am not a currencies expert. I'm just pointing out that makes sense with some of the crypto astrology that I'm going to do now that's coming up. Hey, crypto. I think a lot of people here might be here for the crypto. I think Bitcoin looks a lot better. New highs, I don't know. Just because I say there's a strong period doesn't mean it's going back into 60,000, around that 60,000 range. I can't say, I really don't know. But we have a couple of good transits. February 2023, we are actually going to go to the bearish transits that I had for 2022. We are going to have another way where we saw the eclipse in October, which has certainly brought up Bitcoin. I remember sort of saying on social media there was something we had to bear in mind. It might be positive. We're going to repeat the same setup with the eclipse in April 2023. So whilst the eclipse might not be so great on markets, this one might be okay. Again, I don't know because it's just the astrology. I'm not making financial prediction. I'll show you what it is so you can see it. April 2023, Jupiter sextile Neptune. The Jupiter-Neptune cycle is extremely important for Bitcoin. When it has been negative, it's come down. We've got a nice positive transit. April 2023, progressed Jupiter. I'm going to show you that too. Again, we don't have the history, but certainly looking at the astrology, it suggests we may see a high point. May 2023, Jupiter trine Pluto. So whilst Jupiter squares Pluto in the USA chart, it is going to trine Pluto in the Bitcoin chart. May, we have seen Bitcoin go up before. This is probably one of the last ones. So we have another positive transit. And, Jupiter coming in Taurus, caveat emptor, I don't know. But look, it's interesting that we have a nice little what I call a cluster here. Okay, and this is where I think that we could decouple a little bit from the stock market. I'm not sure, but Elon Musk Twitter seems a no-brainer that I said before. Twitter has an eclipse on the sun in May 2023. Eclipses on the sun will bring a lot of change. Now, sometimes, yes, companies can go off the exchange, go bankrupt, get taken over. We can get a dose of power, or we have massive change. Things are not the same. I'm not forecasting a payment system, but I'm certainly not ruling it out around May 2023. A little bit of caution from July. We are coming to late stage Uranus in Taurus. After this, 20 degrees. I'll show you that a little bit. And September 2023, there is a transit I'll show you as well. The good news is Uranus will pull back into Taurus. Let's take a little look at Bitcoin. If you watched my 2022 forecast, you may remember I had this little setup here, and I'm going to move it. There's Saturn at the bottom here. Okay, I'm just moving that around there. And we have what's called this Jupiter, moving the arrow around, Uranus midpoint. And Saturn was coming over here, and we thought, that might not go so well. Well, that didn't go so well. We also had the eclipse coming on at the same time here. I just want to point out, coming into the year, very early January, again, this sort of whole Twitter Elon Musk thing, we still have the eclipse going from October. That can last for 3 months. I'll show you that in a minute. I do just want to point out Saturn is coming over that point again in January 2023. I believe it is Mercury retrograde as well. We start Mercury retrograde around December, so we'll be coming to that shadow bit, which Bitcoin is not a fan of. But I got something good to show. Okay, I haven't been this positive on Bitcoin in a little while, actually. In February, here comes Jupiter. And it's actually not opposite, because that Saturn there is opposite, screaming, shouting. This is what we call conjunct. Don't worry about the big terminology. Much better place. And here's Jupiter in February 2023. So it's a complete reverse I was talking about before. So we may see a little bit of strength coming up in February 2023. That's exciting. show you this eclipse where we have seen the strength at the end of 2022. We just said really might happen. We've got to remember solar eclipses can last for a couple of months. Okay, what we had, you don't see too much here, but this eclipse is at 2 degrees of Scorpio. I'm not going to make it too complicated. This is a bit of a kind of pretty powerful setup. It is advanced financial astrology. We finished the Jupiter square Pluto. So there it is. It's off. It's out of there. And here we've come up after that's finished. Looking at this, it came across, it sat on our Jupiter here, okay? So there's this sort of eclipse on the Jupiter point. I'm going to show you something for that eclipse in April 2023. And I don't think this looks too bad. So there's that eclipse with Pluto sitting on the Jupiter. And that's sort of hitting the same spot we saw before. It's an identical setup. We have the eclipse doing exactly the same things. So there's that Jupiter sextile Neptune I mentioned, okay? That is what we call a synodic cycle. Don't worry about the words, it's complicated. Uranus trine the sun, April. So March into April, and this is that Uranus sextile Uranus. I think this looks okay. I want to make it really clear. I don't trade Bitcoin, so I don't understand all the bits that are going on with it. We do have Saturn coming to Venus, and I will just point that out. Just be a little bit careful. You may see a reaction. That is in May. This gets a bit interesting as well. This is what I call a master transit. But again, this whole Elon Musk thing, I don't know, 21st of May, 2023. I guess I will just point out that is the thing that might give it a bit of a... But I want to show you something pretty cool, or could be a big transit. I don't know the words for it. That hasn't happened before on this chart. This is the chart of May, and almost at that time we saw before with the Jupiter Pluto, this is what's called a progress chart. It's an astrology chart of where the asset is in time. We have our own ones. It's kind of to look, okay, what's going on in my life now with the astrology. We're born with a natal chart, but we get to look at our chart where we are now. You know, when we're getting on in life, planets do move a little bit around, and it's called a progress chart. You will always have the natal chart, and we actually put the two charts on top of each other as a way of reading too. But this progress chart, you know, where we are in time, this is the sun. This is Bitcoin. Anything in an astrology chart is the sun. If it's your astrology chart, you're the sun. If it's a company, the company is the sun. If it's a crypto product, crypto is the sun. The sun and Jupiter are what we call conjunct. Progress Jupiter conjunct the progress sun. Now, I have done it a few days before. I don't know what happens after these guys get together. Okay, so you may see a bit of a rise into this. I don't know. We've never seen it before. It's a guess. I want to make that really, really clear because we don't have any data. But we certainly may see a little bit of a rise here, and that's fitting with a lot of that other astrology. I do want to point out this Venus. Venus is currencies, and Saturn the police. They are going to scream and shout. It's the easiest way to describe it, across from each other. And that is going to happen around August, sorry. So you just want to be a little bit careful of that. This is finished. And when these transits are finished, sometimes there's a little bit of a downside. So I'm just going to heads up, August, I don't know anything that goes on with crypto and stuff like that, okay? I don't know what that means. And that would actually give that eclipse in April a couple of months to work as well as a solar. So if it were, again, as I'm just talking about the astrology, I'm not really straight up making financial predictions, but that's also when we've got that US dollar with some of the negative astrology. So, and you know, here comes Elon Musk. Now I'll show you something else to do with May. This is the astrology chart of Twitter, okay? So here's the sun. The Saturn, I don't know if I love this, but anyway, this is the sun here at 15 degrees of Scorpio. We are going to have a lunar eclipse at 14 degrees Scorpio in May falling on that sun. And that's often usually when we see some sort of change in some way, okay? I actually thought maybe when they got taken over, it would actually happen here in May. So what it probably means is some change in some way. Now, just putting it out there, that the Saturn eclipse might not be so pleasant to them. So I'm certainly not, you know, we might want to see what happens there. But just have a look, you know, so that you may see some sort of big change in some way. Just eclipses to Saturn, not fantastic, but that fits with the Bitcoin cycle really interestingly. What I say in financial astrology, look for clues. The real world should really back up the astrology, okay? So just have a bit of an eye. So there's a really interesting synergy with Bitcoin and this kind of April, May. So, and then there's actually going to be a bit more, just speaking of Twitter. The eclipse in October 2023 will be what we call the prenatal or postnatal eclipse. That sounds complicated. It just means the eclipse that it was born on, like us. And that eclipse tends to affect us the strongest out of them all. And that's going to be in October 2023, wherever we have these sort of little, they're called the nodes. We're talking about that with the property cycle. And so this is the eclipse here in October. So we can see that this is the eclipse connected to when Twitter IPO'd. We have Saturn over Neptune making a bit of a move here. That might not be, look, I don't know what that means. It may not be that fantastic. So expect a fair work of change coming on. You'll see quite a bit. You'll also have Uranus opposing this, where you're seeing a lot of the problems at the moment. Look at this. Uranus is what we call stationing, very, very strong across from Saturn. So a few fireworks, but, the point is here, Bitcoin and crypto and stuff. So it looks okay. Ethereum, again, I don't trade crypto. I don't know too much what's going on in the daily ins and outs. I want to show you one transit that is coming up for Ethereum, which looks kind of interesting. I'm going to show you this because the timing is really interesting. April 2023, Jupiter conjunct Uranus. Now, in Bitcoin, that was our very, very last major top that we had in Bitcoin. This is certainly very, very interesting. Jupiter conjunct Uranus here. I would maybe want to take a little bit of caution when this Saturn comes later down into Pisces later in the year. That'll probably come. That's going to be actually early 2024. I think that's going to be okay in that case. So just be aware that that's going to tee up. It's really interesting. I'm going to show one more crypto product that also seems to time. This is where I started putting this together quite a while ago. Actually, I wanted to do this, but I needed to wait for this Twitter thing. It all starting to make it look, I don't know whether ETH would be in it, but it may just be we see this sort of sector push. Pluto coming down on the moon. The moon rules the public. I don't know what's going to happen from here. Pluto is going to take so long to get to 1 degree of Aquarius, all right? But I'm just going to point out that that's going to be there later. But for now, just keep an eye on Ethereum. No financial advice provided. It is the astrology of Ethereum. But certainly something looks interesting if we're still using this chart, of course, in April. What's the third one? Ripple. I have got a video on this that I did ages ago. I said I didn't expect anything to happen until late 2022. I believe there is some court case probably about to happen. And I said, maybe look to 2023. I'm just going to touch on that because I really think it really fits with the crypto picture pretty well. XRP Ripple. Where you've got to be careful of this, by the way, is this Pluto opposite Sun. Why Ripple has just had a rotten run, where it just has been a little bit, not rotten, but it hasn't been the most fantastic of stuff. We had the eclipse 2 degrees Scorpio October as I'm doing this. That court case, don't know. I'd certainly be a little bit careful of it. But this Pluto opposite the Sun does create a lot of problems for Ripple, okay? They actually really need to re-IPO Uranus square Pluto. That's a pretty heavy setup. So you want to look at all transits in Ripple chart, by the way. Pluto, Sun, Uranus. That's going to take the bulk of it. Now, they're going to have an eclipse. That eclipse in April is going to fall on the moon. You may see a bit of a renewed, let me see if I can get that eclipse up for you to show you. You may see the public back into Ripple here. But something's going to happen a little bit earlier. And what I'll show you is that, let me just get this out. Jupiter conjunct Uranus and even Jupiter-Venus. Venus loves currencies. Jupiter-Venus conjunct Uranus. If you know astrology, Uranus is over this south node. Maybe a little bit chromatic look, I don't know. Have a look a bit in March 2023. What's going on? Are we going to make a top? I don't know if that works in crypto so well. But there's a bit of astrology here, but certainly this one is what I've been eyeing off for quite a while. I did mention look at early 2023 into this video. Again, you're going to have another Saturn-Neptune. You're going to get an extraordinary amount of Saturn-Neptune. And so when Saturn goes into Pisces, by the way, with all this crypto, look, I don't know what this is about. Just putting it out there, and I'm going to leave it like that. But certainly the public may get way more into this. And they actually notice what is going to happen as well, using one of these sort of I do like this Jupiter-Uranus midpoint for crypto. It is slightly more advanced astrology. Feb 2023, you might even see something from February here. Look, I don't know. I'm a little hesitant to make crypto predictions. I don't really know it very well. You do need to watch this little Jupiter square Pluto, though. Where's that going to be? That is Feb's. Jupiter cycle. Don't go into anything crazy here with this sort of Jupiter-Pluto Sun square. But certainly this hasn't hit yet. So it looks a little bit mixed actually. But I'm just pointing that out. So, it's interesting that all these crypto things are all sort of coming together in this kind of March, April. So here it's an eclipse, Jupiter's on the moon, it's all coming together very interestingly. So I would say keep your eyes on the Twitter thing, because certainly, and I'm not predicting and saying it's going to be a move, but it's like a jigsaw puzzle astrology trying to put it all together. And I'm just going to do really quick ones here. The feedback I get, a lot of people want the crypto, the markets, this will go on forever and ever, and it's probably a little complicated, but I want to show you just quickly one or two things happening on the Euro chart. This is the first trade chart of the Euro. Saturn, 26 degrees of Aries. Well, what is the eclipse? That is coming 29 degrees of Aries. Eclipses to Saturn just aren't fantastic. I don't think it's going to be fantastic. And then what's coming up? This Pluto-Neptune. Pluto isn't even at 1 degree yet. It's going to take forever to get there. That's probably not that fantastic. This is really interesting. Lehman Brothers. I think it was Lehman that I looked at Pluto over Neptune. I think it actually destroyed. I'm not saying that's going to happen to the Euro here, of course. It's totally different. But this isn't a good set of astrology. It's just a little, so I don't think things are going to be fantastic. I have a video with Gianni DePocci from MMA Cycles on the bigger picture of the Euro. But you need to go in the Eurozone. There's a ton of astrology. This could be a little, but things are pretty tough anyway. And again, the strength of the US dollar coming into May, I don't really love that either. But this is a pretty big transit. The eclipse is also going to square Neptune. That's actually, and his Venus, your currency. So this just looks pretty shonky. Okay, Jupiter square Venus there too. But anyway, I've got a more detail on that. So yeah, this just doesn't look fantastic at all. And I'll just quickly mention the pound. I do have a huge blog on my website, profitwiththeplanets.com, the astrology of the pound into 2024. We were expecting a dump. I'm very happy living in the UK. Did take advantage of that. And again, I do have a much more detailed, but I don't think it looks that fantastic into 2023. The UK government have come out and said there's likely to be a recession for 2 years. Yep, fits absolutely perfectly with the astrology. Saturn opposite Saturn. This is January. Let's just get it straight in there, beginning of the year. Looks pretty messed up. Pluto is crossing the descendant. That is a really intense transit too. Pluto coming on the angles is actually way stronger. And an angle is these lines that you see in the arrows, that Jupiter's next to the midheaven, Pluto is next to the descendant, and the one on the left is this. This is really quite important astrology. So when we add this together, Saturn opposite Saturn, Pluto conjunct the descendant, and then we've even got some nasty transits of Jupiter opposite Uranus. There's Saturn opposite Saturn. There's some pretty big ones here. It is all really, really detailed. Pluto opposite Moon out of favor with the public. This will be a giant one when it gets there. Pluto opposite Jupiter. That is going to be, you can see there's that Jupiter there, but when that Pluto is across from Jupiter, that is going to be quite the transit, let me say. So, there's a lot of stuff coming. It is all really detailed. Uranus opposite Neptune. That's not going to be fantastic. Uranus square Saturn. There's a ton of stuff coming here again. So I'm not a fan of the pound into next year. And then we actually have Saturn opposite Pluto. This is going to be in April and March, April. Pretty big transit unto itself. And that's actually getting really geared up. I'm not a fan of the pound. It just fits with it. It's finally they've come out and made the prediction. It was pretty obvious. So interestingly, when we get in these Aries eclipses, this was even that's floated around the beginning when it came out into this sort of Aries Libra here. It's going to come in 2024, so I won't get there later. So, some really big astrology here. And it's just fitting. Hopefully they don't backtrack on the predictions and stuff now. Now, we'll just point out the UK did get a pretty good transit with the solar eclipse in October. I think it was a bit of a save. So it's come out a little bit better. I'm not making any political statements. I live there, but I'm not English to be able to make that. Going back to where we started, the big stuff, Pluto to Aquarius, Saturn Pisces, things are going to probably feel a little bit tough. Jupiter Taurus, not fantastic for financial markets. It will get going, but certainly the beginning has not showed great in history. Oh, I will just quickly talk about this Uranus late stage Taurus. Crypto is probably going to be quite relevant, but it is all financial markets in a way as well, because we've seen this sort of Uranus brought all this change and innovation into finance. 17 degrees. I want to show you what happened or when 15 degrees was. Let's go back to May. When did we have that really big fall in crypto? In May. Look at that, halfway through. The halfway point is extremely, and there was that Jupiter in Aries, you know, maybe that was attributed to Jupiter in Aries, but I'm actually going to think that this actually had probably a lot to do with it. This kind of magic number here. Now, what's going to talk, oh, you know, this is the astrology of 2023. So here we are at 17 degrees. Anything past 15 has not been fantastic for crypto. The escalator went to the mall, everyone got at the top, and the escalator started coming down. But I've got some good. Here we are in December. We are going to push back into that 15, okay? It is Mercury retrograde, just going to put that out there. But as we come into January, look at that, 14. I don't know, but I'm actually having a bit of a look to see, you know, well, could this even push crypto up a little bit? Look, I don't know, but you are coming and get into this early part, well, not early, but the first half. This is probably a little bit of a save here. Look, this is going to start coming out again around March. But I just want to point out how important that is. Okay, and in May we're at 18. So I do think it's starting to, so this is why I don't know if we're going to have these new highs. I don't think so. I could be wrong though. We don't know the Jupiter in Taurus, but we are getting to, as Jupiter comes into Taurus there, we're starting to get into this 20. I don't know the magic number. I do with Jupiter cycles. I don't know. Here we've got to start being a little bit, not concerned, but we're getting late stage. Okay, so it depends what Jupiter is going to do. These will meet up in 2024, but this is an astrology of 2023. So just bear in mind, anything the second half of the year, look, it is going to go backwards, forwards again. Here we get into September. Now, Uranus retrograde, does that affect crypto too? You'll probably, I actually seem to think it does from memory. But we are getting really late stage at the end of the year. I guess it helps that it will go backwards a little bit too. But just bear that in mind. You may see it pull back. You might see a change of trend the other way. Say it starts to go a bit negative. There's our Saturn in Pisces too. I don't think this is going to be great for crypto just generally. I don't know. I think it's more on a regulatory issue. And also, I just want to point out Saturn in Pisces. It is going to give us a bit of a get real in the stock market. So if you want to get in the stock market without doing study, yes, you can learn some astrology, but unfortunately, astrology won't give us an excuse not to understand the psychology or the basic workings of the market. It's a bit of a fine line there. So just be careful of Uranus coming into those different degrees. I don't know, something happens around this sort of September. This is why in the forecast for crypto, I've really pushed to that early part of the year before we start getting here, that June, July, where we may see a resumption. Again, you've got this whole Twitter story. I don't know the Jupiter and Taurus story, but I really wanted to point out the importance of that when that Uranus went to 15 degrees and where we saw the massive change in trend. Things are going to go up. When things hit crucial levels, they will go up again, but it just feels that we could have this mix of kind of natural causes. We're looking for a bit of a top in the property cycle. Bring in your pyramid of primary needs, food, shelter from harm, safety. When you're thinking buying property, astrology is not always the most important thing. There are different needs for different people. But yes, we may make a bit of a top. We could see a really dramatic change in trend. It could escalate quickly. I don't know. Will things feel like early 2022, 2021? Highly unlikely. So I wish you a lot of care with the markets, care with the trading. We still can always make great investments. Follow the Jupiter cycle. Think Saturn is contraction and undersupply. Jupiter is oversupply. If you are worried, you're not the only one. It is pretty apparent among everyone. So all the best for 2023. Plan, prepare. To quote my favorite astrologer, chance comes to the prepared mind.